You have to shake your head in disbelief. How on earth can these things happen? And in this particular case, how could he possibly get away with it for so long? It's just unthinkable.
A father kept his daughter locked away in a secret chamber for 24 years.
The poor girl was only 18 when the horror began, and over the years she had 7 children.
One died, 3 were kept prisoner in the cellar, and unbelievably, the others were adopted by the father and lived openly upstairs as his grandchildren.
No wonder the family's story stunned the world. I must add a warning. What follows contains strong adult themes.
In the very early hours of a morning about a month ago, an ambulance drove up this road, bringing a seriously ill young woman to a small hospital in Amstetten, a town not far from Vienna. She looked like a ghost, severely ill, with her only relative, a mysterious grandfather.
But the staff didn't know what to do with her, and they said, "We have to find the mother very urgently." Finding the mother had now become absolutely essential. After a few days, a woman named Elizabeth came forward and slowly revealed details of a story so horrifying it would shock the world. Elizabeth Fritzl revealed that her father, Joseph, had kept her locked in a cellar for 24 years, where she gave birth to 7 of his children, including the daughter now on life support in the hospital. I thought, I cannot believe it, this can't be true. It was a monstrous case. Her own father had done this to his daughter, his own flesh and blood.
And this is where that monstrous crime happened. 40 Eibleibstrasse, Amstetten, a place now ranking among the world's worst crime scenes. It comes as a real shock to discover that this house of horrors is on a very busy, very ordinary suburban street with shoppers and neighbors everywhere. And yet, for 24 years, no one suspected the appalling crimes happening there.
This seemed like an ordinary family. Neighbors described Joseph Fritzl and his wife, Rosemary, as kind, especially with their grandchildren.
But Austrian journalist Petra Stoiber, following the case, is outraged that such a crime could happen in her country. "I'm very angry. I can't believe anyone could do this to a woman, and it says a lot about society that no one wanted to look deeper or question anything."
Joseph Fritzl, an electrical engineer, was respected in his community. Yet, in reality, he was a convicted rapist who meticulously planned his crimes, possibly beginning as early as 1978. His goal to create his own empire with his daughter, Elizabeth, whom he imprisoned in a hidden cellar. Chief investigator Franz Pauser has shown that Fritzl's prison was accessible through 8 locked doors, leading to cramped, dark, airless rooms where Elizabeth was held.
In 1984, Elizabeth disappeared, though her father convinced everyone she had run away due to behavioral issues. For the first 4 years, she was completely alone, except for her father's visits when he would leave her.
Over 24 years, she bore him 7 children in the cellar. 1 child died shortly after birth, and Fritzl incinerated the body. Of the 6 remaining, 3 were allowed to live upstairs. The others, Felix, now 5, Stefan, 18, and Kirsten, 19, were condemned to life in the dungeon. Yeah, Dr. Christoph Herbst, Elizabeth Fritzl's lawyer, was stunned by how well she and the children coped writing, mathematics, and these things. She had some books. She asked her father to bring her books sent, and then some learning materials, selling some stuff, and then she tried to educate your children. I think they had 2 or 3 hours per day.
They had just to learn something. Joseph Fritzl has never explained why he chose only 3 of the children to live upstairs. Each was taken from Elizabeth shortly after birth and placed on the front doorstep.
Fritzl told his wife that their runaway daughter had simply dumped them in the dead of night with a note. Wouldn't you think, with all this going on, that Rosemary, the mother, would start asking questions? Maybe she feared about Deance's answers. Do you think she knew? But we still do not know what his wife really knew. She took in 3 babies one after another and accepted them. Yes. What do you think? She was so suppressed that she didn't raise questions, she didn't dare to raise questions, and she accepted everything. for years and years. With his upstairs family totally submissive and his secret downstairs family locked away, a super confident Fritzl went on a string of holidays. Like this fleazy sex tour of Thailand. Who looked after the family in the basement?
Who looked after the prisoners downstairs in the basement? How does he get away with that nobody looked after them? Because he was a very good logistic thinker, and he planned everything. He had some rooms where they could store milk and bread and all the things you need, even vegetables, and yes, they were fine for 3 weeks. That was okay. There was one thing that Fritzl couldn't control. When one of the kids in the dungeon got seriously ill, he had to do something. And that brings us back to this hospital where things started to unravel.
It was a few weeks ago the eldest of the cellar kids, 19-year-old Kirsten, became seriously ill, and remarkably, Fritzl agreed to call an ambulance, the first time ever, outside. Doctors were immediately suspicious. The young girl was as white as a sheet from severe vitamin D deficiency, a total lack of sunblood. Police were baffled. Who was she? Where was her mother?
Back in the basement, Beth finally stood up to her father, demanding to go and see Kirsten, and again, remarkably, he agreed. What do you think the Elizabeth said to Fritzl? I mean, what do you think she said to convince him? I think she said, "You will be guilty of murder," or something like that, and she must have been outrageous and in a very, very, very precarious state of mind. So to see how Dog goes, I think he feared that everything could explode downstairs. In fact, the whole situation had become so explosive that Joseph Fritzl knew he had to move very fast to prevent 25 years of lies and deception from blowing up in his own face. So astonishingly, he went down to the dungeon basement and brought up Elizabeth and the 2 remaining imprisoned children to meet the family upstairs. And the way he sold it, Elizabeth had come home before she was so concerned about her daughter in Roswell. At the hospital, police began questioning Elizabeth. At first, they suspected her of being an abusive mother, but finally, 24 years of horror came bursting out. First of all, they didn't believe her because it was so die. Mm-hmm.
It was kind of such an amazing story, and it was like a really bad thriller or something like that, because she must have said to them, "He's kept me in a dungeon for 24 years. He's raped me several times. I bore him 7 children. 1 died after birth." And the young policemen or women who heard this, what do you think they said to themselves? I think they needed psychological help themselves, because you cannot bear something like that. You cannot listen to something like that and not be touched in a very, very deep way. What motivates a man like this? Most men who fall into this pattern of offending have, I think, 2 things. They have a corrupted lust and a desire and urge for possessive control.
Dr. Paul Britton, one of Europe's leading forensic psychologists, believes Fritzl planned the imprisonment of his daughter when she was very young. Men who offend against their children, their daughters, they don't begin when she's a young woman of 18. They begin when she is a child. They blame her for arousing in them illicit feelings. So what they're able to do is they're able to push away from themselves responsibility, and they put it onto someone else. But what you really have is a straightforward predatory lust. For the survivors of 40 Strasser, the sad irony is that after all those years locked in the cellar, they're now locked away in a psychiatric hospital under heavy gut.
The conclusion of the Joseph Fritzl case is a tragic testament to the horrors of prolonged abuse, secrecy, and manipulation. Fritzl was ultimately arrested in 2008 after his daughter, Elizabeth, managed to alert authorities when her eldest daughter, Kirsten, fell gravely ill. The authorities were shocked by the discovery of the hidden cellar and the extent of the abuse.
Fritzl was tried and convicted of multiple charges, including rape, incest, false imprisonment, and murder for the child who died shortly after birth. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, ensuring he would never again have the opportunity to harm others. This case horrified the world and brought attention to the importance of vigilance, mental health support, and the need for strong community and institutional protections to prevent such abuses from going unnoticed.
Elizabeth and her children were freed and placed under psychological care to help them recover from their traumatic experiences. They were given new identities and have since tried to rebuild their lives in privacy. This case underscores how manipulative and abusive individuals can conceal the darkest acts behind a mask of normalcy, and reminds us of the importance of creating communities where everyone feels empowered to speak out if they sense something is wrong. Josef Fritzl, now 88, remains imprisoned in Austria after being convicted in 2009 for his crimes against his daughter. In January 2024, an Austrian court approved his transfer from a psychiatric facility to a standard prison, as a psychiatric evaluation determined that he no longer posed a significant danger. Fritzl is now housed in a regular prison where he will serve his life sentence without special mental health restrictions, indicating that his situation may not change unless further court decisions arise.
Creating this documentary was a comprehensive journey involving many intricate layers of work, from scripting, voiceovers, and background music to seamless transitions, graphic design, color adjustments, in-depth research, investigation, and motion graphics. Each element required dedication and attention to detail, and I am incredibly grateful for everyone involved in bringing this vision to life.
If you're inspired by this story or wish to create something similar, please don't hesitate to reach out. Contact Wajid Khan at racppk@gmail.com.